Welcome to Lightning Out the Bottle podcast. I am your host, Mr. Leach, and it's good to be back talking Charger football with you guys once again. Well, they finally released it, and today we'll go over the Charger schedule. They didn't really do us any favors with the schedule. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, we're on the road most of the year. When I say we're on the road most of the year, I'm talking distance wise. Man, they got us traveling to all ends of the earth. Got us going to Brazil. They got us going to New York. They got us going to Florida. They got us going to Texas. I mean, they have us going all over the map to get these games done. But that's what we're gonna do, and it's a drastic increase in schedule difficulty. So I am concerned with what we're going to be doing this year on the football field, but I'm not too concerned because this is the second year of that Harbaugh regime, and like we know, once he comes in and he lays that foundation of the culture, it tends to go nowhere but up from there. So that's why I think they put this strength of schedule in front of us, with a higher difficulty than last year. Last year was rough, new regime, team members leaving. We were in really rough shape when Jim Harbaugh walked into the building. And after 1 year, I mean, him and Roman and Mentor and Ben Herbert have really whipped this team into shape. The Spanos have done a great job of allowing them to do so, opening up the checkbook, and Ortiz being responsible with that checkbook. So it's been a great year and some change so far for this front office. And I really salute what they did, and now we're going to see when the rubber meets the road what type of team we are. They've added a lot of size to this team. They've added a lot of strength to this team. They've added veterans to this team. So I think they've got a real good product that they're going to put on the field. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the schedule. The league didn't do us any favors on opening day of this schedule. In fact, it seems like they tried to do the Chiefs a favor by giving us a home game that's a 4-hour difference from our own time zone. So basically, this is an away game as well, not only because of the travel, but because this time zone is closer than the time zone of the Chiefs than the time zone that we play in. So that right there is a big issue. I think the league has seen the decline in the Chiefs, and they're trying to hoist their golden boy back up, and they've seen the increase in production that the Chargers have and the size difference in the team that they had last year to this year. So they tried to go ahead and give the Chiefs as many advantages as they could. They did take a step back. They lost Tooney, but they drafted Josh Simmons with their 31st pick. They did actually draft really well, really well. And it's surprisingly they didn't. They did not get a young tight end, which I thought they would because Kelsey is getting long in the tooth. Their young players will probably have an adjustment period playing out of the country for their opening day and learning that Andy Reid offense, even though Andy does tend to simplify it for his younger players. So I think that's going to help these guys a lot. But they did draft very well, and I think in the upcoming seasons they're going to be a very dominant team once again. But as for now, I don't think they are, and I don't think they're actually ready to deal with this Chargers team at the moment coming into the league. So I actually give us the edge in this game. I think we'll walk out of there with a W. Even with Mahomes, I'm not sure that they have the depth to deal with this Chargers team. So I see the Chargers getting away with this game. Sneaking out of there with a win, 21-13, Los Angeles Chargers. We start off with 3 division games back to back. They front-loaded our schedule, and it's very important that we get off to a good start if we want any hope of winning this division this year. And I think we're actually positioned very well to do so. In week 2, they went ahead and put the Las Vegas Raiders on our schedule. Now, they actually had a very fantastic draft, I'm not going to lie. As much as I want to hate on them, their front office seems to be getting things together with the addition of Pete Carroll and Tom Brady up in that front office. So we're actually going to have to watch out for them for the next couple of seasons because they are on an uptick. With Brock Bowers already on that roster, they added Geno Smith to the roster. And he's a good enough quarterback. He's not a great quarterback, but he definitely can come in and win you some games. He's a stopgap quarterback for now. But he can come in, win you 7-8 games in the season. I don't see him having a problem doing that. They added Ashton Genty, which was a great addition. They added Beck, the wide receiver out of TCU. Darian Porter, the quarterback out of Iowa State. They added one of my guys, Dante Thornton Jr., who's going to be a problem in this league. Going to the Raiders is going to be hard for him. He doesn't have the best route running capability, and I really actually wanted him to go to a team that I thought could develop his route tree. I'm not sure the Raiders can do that. With Pete Carroll, though, there is a possibility, but Pete does like to chuck the ball down the field. That's one of the things he does love to do. So I don't even see him taking the time to improve this kid's route running, and I think that's going to actually set him back. They did grab J.J. Pegues, which I loved him. So they actually did add a couple of linemen too. So I give them a kudos for their offseason. You know, they did have a very good offseason, but we still about to lay hat on them boys. We still about to lay hat on the Raiders because that's just what we do. I see us getting out of there with a 31-17 win over the Raiders because it's the Raiders, and I don't like them, respect them, or trust them to beat us in any game. So we're going to stay with that reputation of sweeping the Raiders, I'm hoping. And it starts off with a big win in week 2 when we just lay the hat and let them know Jim Harbaugh is still in the building. And I don't care if Pete Carroll came in with all the hating in the world that he wants to, all the competition that he wants to. We're going to lay hat on them Raider boys like we always do. In week 3, we got the Denver Broncos. Now, they had themselves a decent enough draft. They didn't do too much in the free agency. They did get Bo Nix a couple of weapons, though. They got Pat Bryant from Illinois, which I did really, really like. They did get R.J. Harvey, 2 out of Central Florida. And he's going to be a really good running back in this league, I think. I do think that they need somebody big, strong in front of him. And he's more of a change of a pace back. Jahdae Barron is a great cornerback. They got him out of Texas. He's going to be a great addition to that secondary for them. But I think they're just not ready yet. Bo Nix on his second year, and these 2 young receivers, they do have some other receivers on that roster that's going to be a good hand for them. Patrick Surtain is still there, so they do have defense. And just because of the rivalry with Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh, the feistiness, this is going to be a very, very good game. And I think the Chargers edge these guys out by a field goal, walk away with a score of 27-24. And that gives us a great start to the season and to our division and attempt to win this division. We'll start out 3-0. Week 4, which will be essentially what is our third away game. We'll be traveling since we went to Brazil, then we went to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. We play the Broncos at home, but then we'll go on the road and travel all the way to New York to play the Giants. We had a pretty quiet offseason. They brought in Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Ole Miss. He most likely won't be the starter. He'll sit behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Eventually, I think later on in the season, he may get the opportunity to start, but he's definitely not going to be the starter jumping off the season. So I'm not too concerned with him. They did bring in Abdul Carter, who's going to be a great edge rusher in this league, I believe. He's a little cocky right now. I think he will get humbled by these offensive linemen in the NFL who are going to show him this isn't college anymore. You can't just come in and dominate. He may come in and dominate, but I doubt it. We're up against Joe Alt or Rashawn Slater. He's going to have big problems dealing with these guys, with the technique, with the size of Joe Alt. Mekhi Becton is on that side. So he's going to have problems trying to get to Justin Herbert. So I'm not really too concerned with him. He is a generational talent, though, so I think that was a great score that they got. They also got Darius Alexander and Cam Scatterboo, so that's where he ended up going to the New York Giants. He's going to have trouble and struggles because they still don't have no offensive line that's going to open up a lot of holes for him. And if Saquon Barkley couldn't shine over there, I really do doubt Cam Scatterboo will. Even though he is a dual threat weapon, he can catch out of the backfield and he can run the ball. He's going to have a hard time finding open holes in that New York Giants offense, and he's definitely going to have it against the Chargers front line. So I'm not concerned with him, and it's going to be way too early in the season for him to really do something. He does have some excitement built up around him, but they just don't have the horses to run with the Bowl gang at all. Not at all whatsoever. So I see the Chargers getting a very easy win over here, 35-14. So that's a bold prediction, is that they're going to start off 4-0 this season. I do think things change. They don't get off to that typical slow start that they do. I think they come out the gate running with all the young talent and the additions. I think Justin Herbert's going to be super excited because he got multiple running backs in the backfield. He has wide receivers all over the field. He has tight ends all over the field. He has big, strong linemen in front of him. So I think they really do open this season with a great start. 4-0, baby. I think it does get a little rocky because of that hot start and jumping out to a 4-0 record. But after 3 road trips, 2 time changes, I think they just come home and they fall a little bit flat. Jaden Daniels has a good game when he comes to LA, and this is the first game with Jalen Lane that they start to connect and build some type of camaraderie on there. And I think the Chargers actually take a fall in this game, lose a close one, 23-19 to the Washington Commanders. In week 6, we take that dreaded trip all the way to Florida, and for some reason the Chargers never play well when they have to travel all the way to Miami. Miami went heavy in the offseason on defense. They went 5 picks out of their 8 draft picks were on the defensive side of the ball. They did bring in Ollie Gordon and Quinn Ewers, but, Quinn Ewers isn't going to get much play unless Tua goes down again, which I'm hoping that he doesn't because I really enjoy watching that kid play. But, other than that, man, they already had a good enough offense, but they added to the D, which what they really, really needed to do. And we always have trouble when we taking that flight, like I said, man. With us having traveled to another country and then to the East Coast and back and then traveling to Vegas and back, now we're traveling all the way to Florida, which is a 4, 5, 6 hour flight from LA. I think this is a tough loss for the Chargers. Even though they keep it very close, I think they do fall in the end in another close game, 27-24. I don't expect these guys to get blown out in any of their losses. I think they really, really dogfight and stay close in all of the games that they actually lose. But this one's going to be tough, man. I think they do fall in the end by a field goal to the Miami Dolphins. In week 7, we come back home and we play the Indianapolis Colts. And I think they get things back on track after suffering from 2 losses. They have a great performance by both running backs in the backfield. I think the Colts still have big issues with their quarterback room. They do still have Jonathan Taylor, so they can tote the rock. Michael Pittman. They bring in Tyler Warren, so they do have a good tight end coming in there. And they are moving into the right direction. But I think just with the Chargers coming off those back-to-back losses and thousands of miles of travel, Harbaugh really, really leans heavy into the run in this game. And they do use a lot of play action to throw this defensive off of their track. And I think Roman begins to open up the offense in this game, and I think that the Chargers win this game handily 23-7 over the Indianapolis Colts. Week 8, J.J. McCarthy comes to town as we play the Minnesota Vikings, and he gets to go up against his old coach and D coordinator who he's seen a lot, so he's very familiar with Jesse Minter's scheme. They did do a lot to shore up their offensive line this season. They brought in Will Freeze, Ryan Kelly at the center position. They drafted Donovan Jackson. They signed Aaron Jones. They still have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They draft Tate Felton at the wide receiver spot. So this feels like a game that we're going to lose for no good reason at all other than McCarthy is familiar with the defensive schemes of Jesse Minter way more than any other quarterback is. And I think that team was already very, 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 very good. McCarthy hasn't proven it to anybody yet if he can actually be a good quarterback and be capable of holding these guys up to the same high standard as they had last year. But I think this is going to be a good game for him playing against his old coaches. I think he's going to be excited and pumped for this game. And I think the rest of the team is really, really solid. So I do see us dropping this game here to the Minnesota Vikings 25-13. That will have us sitting at 5-3 at midseason, which is not a bad start to the season, but we're not out of the woods yet. But this team is very well coached. And they want to run the ball well, and they've actually gotten the pieces to run the ball well. So I have faith that the coaching staff will get everybody in shape. Have everybody moving the ball off the line, and I do see a vast improvement in this team. I wish we would have did more in the offseason to address the offensive line, but if you guys watched my last video on the undrafted free agent rookies, that offensive line is big and stout. They brought in 5 offensive linemen to help Justin Herbert, and all of the smallest one is 6'5", 340, and that's Nash Jones. So they have done a lot to improve this line, and I think we're in a very good position going forward. Week 9, we're on the road again, and this time we travel all the way to Tennessee to play the Titans. The organization is currently in rebuild stage. They did spend their number 1 pick overall on a quarterback, Cam Ward. So they are trying to move in the right direction. They didn't draft him a ton of weapons though. It didn't help. They didn't get him a lot of help on the line. They got Tyler Lockett and Calvin Ridley. They did draft Gunnar Helm, which is a tight end that I really, really like. They got Khalil Mullins. Even on the road, having to travel to the Midwest, they should be able to win this game handily because the defense isn't where it needs to be. The offense definitely isn't where it needs to be. The only advantage that they'll have over the Chargers is the Chargers will be on the road. They will be tired from all the travel that they've done so far in this season. But I think that the Chargers walk away with this win very, very handily at 31-13. I don't see them being able to stop us, and I don't see them being able to move the ball on us very well. So I think that's going to be a very, very good game for us, and I think we showcase a lot of the talent that we have on this team. Now, week 10, the Pittsburgh Steelers come to town, and this is always a very, very tricky game. always a very, very tricky game because the Steelers do well during the regular season. Week 10 is about when they start to have their meltdown. So I think that's going to be very key in the outcome of this game. Because they always find a way to win early in the season. Once you get to around week 10, 11, 12, they start to tail off, have all kinds of problems. So I'm actually counting on that to happen this year too. They had a very interesting offseason, not re-signing either one of their quarterbacks. They bring in DK Metcalf and they end up trading away George Pickens. And they still don't have a quarterback, right? Aaron Rodgers has been rumored to them and he's been linked to them. And, they did draft Will Howard and they did get Caleb Johnson to replace Najee Harris. But that's another 2-3 yards in a cloud of death. So he's not really going to do too much. I don't think he's not the type of breakout running back that would be getting much more production than what Najee Harris got in this offense. They added Derek Harmon and Yaya Black on the D line and Jack Sawyer to the edge. So, like always, the Pittsburgh Steelers focus more on defense than they do on their offense. That's why they can never really go anywhere. They do have winning seasons, but they don't ever do anything in the playoffs. So, but we're dealing with them in the regular season. So it's going to be very important that we actually lock down and play this game because this is going to be a very gritty game. They do still have Robert Woods. They did draft Roman Wilson last year. The defense is still solid. But again, this is another team that doesn't have the horses to keep up scoring wise. But I do think Mike Tomlin grinds this game to a halt because Harbaugh is going to want to run the ball anyway, and Mike Tomlin is not going to want to pass the ball and put the ball in jeopardy with suspect quarterback play, suspect wide receiver play. You do have great safeties in that Charger room. You do have good cornerbacks in that Charger room. So putting the ball in the air, even with Aaron Rodgers to DK Metcalf, is going to be very, very dangerous. And I don't see Mike Tomlin taking that risk. So I think this is going to be a very, very ground and pound game. You got two old school coaches that love to run the ball. I think it's going to be a grinded out type of game. But I do think the Chargers pull this game off, win this game 17-14 in the end. In week 11, we go back to Florida and we have to play the Jacksonville Jaguars this time. But this team has been an absolute disaster this last couple of seasons. Ever since they beat us in the playoffs, it's been all downhill for this team from there. They did add Travis Hunter. They added Bashil Tootin to that offense. They still have Travis Etienne, but that's pretty much it for this offense. The line is suspect. The receivers aren't that good. Trevor Lawrence has pretty much been a bust. He's nowhere near what everybody thought and touted him as the quarterback coming in. So I'm not concerned with him too much. And that victory was more of a Brandon Staley meltdown than it was a Trevor Lawrence victory. So I don't really have too many concerns with these guys. The biggest problem is just going to be that trip to Florida and all the travel that these guys have already done. So, when we travel there, we do tend to have problems. I don't know if it's the time zone, the humidity, if they're partying too much. I don't know what's going on with this team, but every time they go to Florida, they seem to come back with a loss. I think this is going to be the first time in a long time that we come back from Florida with a win. I think the Chargers pull this out, get their first shutout of the season with a 24-0 skunk of the Jacksonville Jaguars. In week 12, the Chargers have a bye week, and I think this is actually a very good space for them to have that bye weekend. They're going to be very exhausted from the travel that they've been doing. And sitting at an 8-3 record, I think they're going to be in a good position to relax a little bit, catch their breath, get their wits together about them. So this is going to be very, very interesting to see how they come out of that break. Because the very next week, in week 13, we play the Raiders again. And all they did draft well, and I think they're going to be having a pretty decent season for them. I think they'll be sitting around 5 wins when we get to them this time. We still finna slap them because the Raiders, that's why. No other reason, but just we don't rock with the Raiders whatsoever. They're not beating us. Under no circumstances will I accept a loss from the Raiders because they're just not worth losing to. Okay? They're going to be the bottom of the division again, like they're the bottom of the division every year. And I don't see any improvement from that for a long, long time, just because they're the Raiders. Tom Brady can help all he wants. Pete Carroll can help all he wants. Davis can get it together all he wants. They'll still be the Raiders. They'll still be trash, and they're not going to beat us. So, walking out of that with a W. Now, in week 14, we play the Super Bowl champions. It's going to be a little rough. It's going to be a little bit rough. They come to town. And we all expect them to be performing at peak level. They lost some players, and their team will have a little bit of regression. But, they added 7 players to this already stout defense through the draft. They still have, Hurts. They extended Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Jahan Dotson. So I expect this to be a hard-fought game as in every game that we play. But I do think they edge us out 24-17 because that team is probably the most complete roster in the league. We're not there yet. We are on the way, but we're not. I don't think we're ready to compete with them yet. This is the end of the year. This is when they'll be shoring up their team. They're going to be performing at a high level. So I do think that they get us with a 24-17 loss. Week 15 coming off a short week because that Eagles game is a Monday Night Football game. We will, again, they're giving the Chiefs all the advantages that they could give to beat the Chargers. Like I said, coming off a short week. And we will be traveling to them. And like I said, this is typically around the time that they start to put it all together. They start to make their playoff push. Mahomes will be in his top form. Andy will be in top form. The staff has more tape on your team. The Chargers will split this series. I see that, and they drop this one in a game where they fall flat, 31-13. In Week 16, we visit the Dallas Cowboys, so we'll be back on the road again. This is around the time when the Cowboys are at the end of the year. They're collapsing. Dak is struggling. The team is imploding. They did add Pickens. They did add Pickens to pair him with CeeDee Lamb, so that's going to be a great powerhouse combination. They do have a new coaching staff. Their line is stout as always. They did add Tyler Booker to the guard position, which was a great pick, one of my favorite picks. Donovan Ezra-Roku on the edge will pair him with Michael Parsons and Dante Fowler Jr. They still have Malik Hooker and Trevon Diggs in that secondary. I just think that they're going to get to Justin one too many times, and one of those receivers is going to make a big play from Joe Milton because I don't see Dak Prescott playing at the end of the season as normal. I think that's why they went and got Joe Milton from the Patriots because they know it too. But I do think the Cowboys end up edging us out because we're just going to be too exhausted from all this travel. And I think they win this game by a touchdown, 35-28. Do think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think both teams get a good effort, but in the end, I think they just edge us out a little bit. Now, Week 17, we play the Texans again. I think this is a revenge game for the Chargers. They have to win this game, and they have to win this game convincingly. Not only for us, but for themselves to let everybody know, players, fans, and the rest of the league, put them on notice that we can't play with these playoff teams and we don't forget things and we hold grudges. So I think they got to come out very, very strong. I think they do need to win this game convincingly. They added Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel to help CJ Stroud out. And, they still have Nico Collins and Christian Kirk. They got Joe Mixon toting the rock. They have a halfway decent defense. They added Jalen Smith and Jalen Reed, which was one of my guys, to the secondary. They added Luke Lackey, who's a tight end that a lot of people slept on in the draft. But I think he's going to be phenomenal over the years in this league. So that was a very, very good pickup from them. But I think Harbaugh and the staff, they have to come into this game with a point to prove and a chip on their shoulder, and I think they will. I think with that college mentality, they formed a rivalry with this team in their head, and I think they have this game circled on their calendar. And I do think that they come out with a revenge victory of 27-17 over the Texans. In Week 18, the final game of the season, we'll play the Broncos for the last game in our division and the season as well. I think at this point in the season, though, Sean Payton and Bo Nix have put it all together. R.J. Harvey and Pat Bryant are going to start coming into their own. Jahdae Barron slid into that nickel corner position, and the team is firing on all cylinders because Sean Payton is a fantastic coach. As much as I don't like the guy because he's a coach in our division, I will give him his props. We have a very, very strong coaching division right now. In fact, Jim Harbaugh is the only one in the division that has not won a Super Bowl. So that lets you know how strong the coaching is in this division, right? So I think these guys will be firing on all cylinders. They'll be trying to make a late playoff push, and the Chargers are just going to be worn out from all this travel and this constant cross country, out of the country, international game, and I think that's just going to catch up to them in this last game. I think they kind of mail it in, and I think they lose the final game of the season 19-6 to a Broncos team that's actually trying to prove a point and get into the playoffs. So I do think that will drop us, right? So that will bring us to a division record of 4-2 and an overall record of 10-7. So I do think we lose one more game, but considering the strength of schedule that we're running into, I think that's going to be a fantastic record to have, and possibly a playoff berth. They say Jim usually leads them to the Super Bowl after his first year. I just don't see that happening this year. We're not there yet. Though I do think we do take a big jump. Even though we'll lose one more game, I think you'll be able to see the difference in this team. It's going to jump off the field how big, how physical this team is, right? Plus, the strength of schedule is much, much harder than last year. So I'm not going to hold it against them if they do drop another game, especially if they get into the playoffs anyway. I do see them winning the division because I think the Broncos steal a game from the Chiefs, and I think that the Raiders may steal a game from the Chiefs. So I do think that they end up going 3-3 in division. Same with the Broncos, and I see the Raiders maybe going 1-5 in the division as they still won from the Chiefs. But I think the Broncos sweep them. I think we sweep them. So I think that'll put us in good position going into the playoffs. And I think that we may shock some people way more than people are giving us credit for. Some people don't think we'll be a 10-win team. I don't believe that. I think that we do win the 10 games. And I think we'll be really, really, really much more prepared to play Jim Harbaugh football, right? We do have 28, 29 rookies on the roster right now. So we do have a pretty young team. But we did have an influx of veterans at those positions of need that we got. So we don't have rookies that are coming in having a start where we have to depend on these guys to play so that we can be good. No, we have guys already in those positions where the rookies can come in, learn for 4, 5, 6 extra weeks during the regular season, contribute where they contribute. They're not going to be dependent on to be the saviors of this Chargers team. So I think all of our rookies are in a very, very, very good position for success. Last year's record was a little misleading to where we were as a team because we had such an easy schedule. So a lot of people are thinking that we were actually better than we actually were. So even though it's one less win on the schedule, I still think we will show that we're a much better team than we were last year. So, they added a ton of veterans, like I said. They added a ton of rookie depth. And I think we're going to shock some people again, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I think we're going to have a really, really good season this year. But I believe in this team. I believe in this coaching staff. And I believe in this front office. And I think they've done enough to get it done, get us back into the playoffs, and win a game. That's the goal. The goal isn't to win the Super Bowl this year. The goal is to get Justin his first playoff win. Maybe get to a second win. That would be fantastic. But we need to walk away this season with at least one win in his playoffs to let them know that we're on the right track. Well, that's all that I got for you guys. Thank you for joining me on the Lightning Out the Bottle podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell notification so you get my videos first. And as always, bolt up. Lightning out the bottle, baby. Let's go!